I started to research the KBF and some past tournaments, and there were certain names that that kept coming up, guys that do really well. And it's no different than the bass trail. We have hammers and they have hammers. And so going in, my mindset was to, bring the A game. You got to perform. These guys are not dummies, It's not going to be easy. It's definitely not taking candy from a baby. So kayak fishing is so new to me that I knew I was going to be facing some obstacles, and the adversity just kept piling up, starting right off the bat. And in order to win, you have to overcome those things, and you have to overcome your mindset and your mental attitude and everything like that. And I think fishing for so long in big tournaments under big lights, got me kind of prepared for what was about to happen. Right off the bat, I think the first thing that happened was I lost my cell phone. In a bass tournament, that's no big deal because we can't use them every day. So I spent a half hour looking for it, had to motion some guys over, come help me out. I lost my phone. And we need those because we take pictures of the fish and submit them on an app. So that was the first thing that happened. Not too long after that, I broke a cable on my trolling motor. And I'm not the world's best paddler, especially in 30-mile-an-hour wind. So I had to paddle. I lost 30 minutes on the cell phone. I lost an hour and a half on that. Had to paddle a mile directly into a strong south wind, get everything fixed, get back out there. Another hour and a half lost. And then, you're kind of nervous a little bit, and things are, kind of shaking, just not going well, not catching big ones right off the bat. And, the very first fish I submitted, I did it backwards. I put the fish on the board the wrong way, sent it in, and thankfully the tournament director, I texted him to make sure that was okay, and he said, "No, bud, it's backwards." So unbelievably, I went through that day and got to the end of the day, and I needed every big fish I could get, and did it again, on my biggest fish of the day, an 18 plus. I forget how big that one was. I forget how big that one was, like 18 and a half maybe, but it was right at the end of the day. Adrenaline's flying, put it on the board backwards, submit another one, and I got that fish disqualified. So lost an inch or an inch and a half there. So to say there was adversity on day one of that tournament is definitely an understatement. I had never been on Lake Erie in a kayak. I didn't spend any of my practice doing that. So I was really apprehensive about it all. I didn't get much sleep the night before, just nervous. I live on the lake shore. I hear the wind blowing all night. I know it's not going to be like a flat day. So it's a lot different. And I think that the guys in the social media world that were saying it's a give me, or I had an advantage or anything like that. I think living there and understanding those fish, that might be true. But as far as, being able to do the things that I do in a full-size bass boat compared to what I'm about to do was the unknown for me. I'd never done it. I've never fished with electronics in that kayak. I'd been out in it less than a dozen times. So I was going to be learning during a tournament what to do, what not to do, how all my equipment works together. I don't really know yet. So, and not to mention, I think the biggest adversity that I haven't talked about a whole lot to this point is the fish were in transition. And, a week before that, it would have been a slam dunk. It was 21 to 22 inches just on every drop, and those fish were moving up. So they were, what it did was it gave people that maybe had never even been to Erie an opportunity to stumble into a wolf pack of fish that are moving up and win the tournament. So that made it difficult, because in the bass boat, I can cover water a lot quicker and find those fish that are moving. But in a kayak, I get out there and realize that everything's changed. It was squirrely. It scared me. Basically on Lake Erie, I'm fishing isolated stuff, whether it's big giant boulders or a little ridge of rocks or whatever. So I didn't know I was fishing until about 3 days before the tournament. I got out one day, half a day, And I took my bass boat. I mean, I asked some of the kayak guys how they pre-fish, and that was the overwhelming response. You know, they fished, guys that had boats fished out of their boats, and I had no idea. So I thought that was good news, you know. I was launching at Shades Beach, which you can see from my house, and I put in there 1/2 day and another like a quarter of a day, but I was parking my truck right there at the ramp thinking it was going to be a decoy because I didn't plan to fish right there. So I would launch right there and just run to other places that had access, you know, for kayaks to get in the water, and I was focusing on places that weren't Shades Beach. I just felt like it was going to get too much pressure. People knew that I lived there, and I thought putting my truck there every day would be just a good, you know, a good strategy. So looking back, you know, I ended up fishing there, and it kind of backfired on me. You know, I had a bunch of fishermen in that general area, but it evolved into a tournament during the first day that I knew it was going to be a hard one. You know, I knew it wasn't going to be easy. So I started thinking about different things that I've done in the past on other fisheries, not just Erie, but ways to not educate my fish too much. I had a bunch of boulders located, but it turned out where like 3 or 4 of them were the ones that were the deal. And you can't just go there and sit there and pound on them. You catch one and leave. So I started changing my whole thought process to like, I got to not educate these fish. I have to have enough for tomorrow. And so I didn't really do anything fancy the first day. I tried to make it happen with generic baits, popular baits that other people throw, just everything, you know, a little bit bigger baits. And I stuck with just a, you know, different type of goby baits that first day. The second day was the end. You know, this is a 2-day tournament, not a 4-day like I'm used to. So now it's time to pull out all the stops, and you know, I had rods rigged with lighter line, 6 pound. I was using 8 pound the first day, and went down to, you know, minnow type style baits. In the fall, these fish, when they're transitioning, they're following emerald shiners, and I hadn't showed those fish anything like that the first day. So my confidence was a little bit through the roof going out, which is important mentally, and ended up, you know, doing pretty well with different minnow style baits. And then at the end of the day, when it was hammer time, you know, I switched to my old faithful, the little Yamamoto shad-shaped worm, and a few different colors, but mainly with some kind of white in them. And that turned out to be the deal. You know, I changed things throughout the tournament. Like the second day, not only did I go to the shad-shaped worm, but I went to a bigger weight to try to get more reaction. You know, a 3/4 ounce. It was fairly calm that day, but you know, just trying to get it down there 100 miles an hour, get that reaction bite, not just sit there and fish it, just go for the reaction bite, try to get that big one first. If I didn't get it, run to another rock. So lots of little changes and stuff like that, but that little shad-shaped worm definitely pulled me through in the end. In my very short kayak life, I've only really made one paddle that was pretty far, and that's when I met the guys from Bonafide. Hans drove all the way from South Carolina to bring up a prototype boat, and I got to paddle it across Lake Arthur. And when I woke up the next morning, I could hardly move. I couldn't even get out of bed. So there's a lot of work that goes into kayak fishing, especially if you're doing it old school. And I just thought about, you know, the wind, how far I had to go. I mean, it was about a mile, a little bit more than a mile offshore. And I just made a phone call at the last minute and was lucky enough to get my hands on a torqueedo trolling motor for that event from fishing online. And they drove all the way up, John and his wife Bree, to help me install the thing and get it going. And I don't think, I like to think I still would have won without it, but I was running and gunning in a kayak, and it's weird to say, but we're going 5.5 miles an hour from boulder to boulder, not fishing in between. There was no accidental fish caught. I really believe that it helped me. You know, I would have definitely had less weight, less inches, I guess they go by, in that event, had I not had the trolling motor.